Hi class, in this recording we're going to focus on special senses. Particularly, we're going to give a lot of emphasis to hearing, equilibrium, and vision. So let's dive into it. As we look at hearing, we need to first focus on what hearing is. So when you hear something, you're taking vibrating air molecules and transmitting those transmuting those vibrating air molecules into an action potential, which is being perceived by your nervous system. When we think of equilibrium, we have sense of motion, body orientation, position, and balance. Both hearing and equilibrium are going to be controlled by structures within our middle ear. We have a maze of fluid-filled passageways that both regulate our position and our sense of hearing. As these fluids move, so as the fluid is set into motion, we'll have sensory cells that have small hairs on them that convert the movement of these fluids into action potentials that we then interpret as either sound or movement of our bodies. So when we think of sound, usually you're going to see a sound wave as represented by some peaks and dips, but really it's not going to be a sine wave or a sinusoidal wave. A sound wave is a compression wave in that it pushes air molecules together. You have a bunch of air molecules bunched together, and then those air molecules that are bunched together will spring apart and push some more air molecules together and spring apart and push some more air molecules together so that we have a compression wave working its way towards our ear. And we'll have, as these compression waves hit our ear, we'll have a slightly elevated pressure, lowered pressure, elevated pressure, lowered pressure. And these are very slight changes in pressure. And as we look at these altered pressures, we can measure these in terms of the frequency, how many pressure waves come by during a given second. So the pressure waves per second is going to be referred to as hertz. Um, and then as we're looking at wavelength is going to be the amount of physical space in between compression waves, or the compressed air molecules for these compression waves. Or if we're looking at a sine wave, it's just the measurement from peak to peak. Now within human hearing, this is a pretty good auditory map. As we look at this map, we can see loudness in decibels, and it's worth emphasizing that the difference between 60 decibels and 80 decibels is pretty significant. So as we're looking at these decibel ranges here, we can max out at about 120 decibels. Anything louder than 120 decibels is probably going to blow your speakers and cause pain to your ears. And anything, generally speaking, lower than 20 decibels, you're going to have a really hard time hearing. Due to the unique physical shape of our inner ear and middle ear, there are some frequencies or pitches of noise that are easier for us to hear than others. So, for instance, if we're talking about very low frequency noises, we have to have a high decibel range before we can start to hear it. We can feel it in our stomachs, but hear it, we need it to be pretty loud. And the same is true with super high frequency noises. So at the extreme ends of our threshold of hearing, the frequency we can hear, the noise has to be very loud for us to hear it. But if we look at our common speech, speech itself is right in the middle. And this is where human voice is going to be centered. I, as a dude, have my voice more towards this end of the frequency spectrum. Before I hit puberty, my voice cracked. My voice is more towards this end of the speech spectrum. And I have a little baby girl right now. She's a year and a half and unbelievably cute. She's way the heck up here. She is super squeaky sounding when she makes her one word sentences and talks to me. It's worth emphasizing as we look at this range of human hearing that this range of human hearing is for somebody who has not experienced hearing loss. If they experience hearing loss, you can start to chop off regions. So as we age, the ability to hear typically quiet, high frequency noises is reduced. So as we age, it's usually this lower right quadrant that I'm circling in red that is eliminated from our range of hearing. So if it's a high frequency noise, it's much more difficult for us to hear it. Now, as we're looking at the pitch, our pitch or frequency can determine if the sound is high or low. And the frequency is measured in hertz, which is the number of compressions or cycles that occur in 1 second. Human hearing can hear up to 20,000 hertz, nothing below 20 hertz. As we're looking at human speech, and these are just some good figures to work with, human speech is between 1,500 and 5,000 hertz. And if we start to have hearing loss, hearing loss is typically going to be from the ranges of 250 to 2000 hertz. As we're looking at loudness, and I know this is directly contradicting what I had mentioned on the last slide, this hearing loss with age is going to be hearing loss due to mechanical exposure. There's also hearing loss that occurs as we lose the ability to move some of the ossicles in our ear, and that's going to be more of the high frequency hearing loss. Anecdotally speaking, at the nursing home, when my wife is talking to her patients, she needs to use her man voice in order for them to understand her. As we look at how loud something is, loudness is going to be expressed in the unit of decibels, lowercase d, capital B, and any noise louder than 90 decibels is typically going to be something that requires hearing protection. But I would recommend that you play it safe. Anything that's really louder than 70 decibels, I'd recommend you have some kind of hearing protection on. That's all we have for this recording. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them on the class discussion boards or shoot me an email. And as always, happy studies.